Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world with me, Deepika, coming up in the next 1 hour. In a historic move, India concludes negotiations on landmark free trade agreement with the European Union, comprising 27 countries, the mother of all deals to represent a quarter of world's economy. Prime Minister Narendra Modi calls the conclusion of India-EU FTA negotiation historic, calls it a blueprint for shared prosperity. Both the sides exchange key MoUs in various sectors. Prime Minister Narendra Modi addresses India Energy Week 2026, says India now moving beyond energy security and towards a mission of energy independence. President Donald Trump to raise tariffs on certain South Korean goods from 15% to 25% for not enacting trade agreement with the United States. Good afternoon to all the viewers joining us at this afternoon broadcast. To begin with the biggest, Prime Minister Narendra Modi held delegation-level talks with the President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, and the President of the European Council, Antonio Luis Santos da Costa, at Hyderabad House in New Delhi. The Indian delegation comprised of several leaders, including External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar, Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal, Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri, and National Security Advisor Ajit Doval, among others. The European delegation was led by President of the European Council, Antonio Luis Santos da Costa, and the President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen. Other key leaders present included EU Vice President Kaja Kallas and European Union Trade Commissioner Marko Sefcovic. The leaders also held a restricted meeting at Hyderabad House. On Tuesday, Prime Minister Narendra Modi hailed the India-EU Free Trade Agreement, reiterating it as the mother of all deals and how it illustrates the partnership between two major economies of the world. Well, the deal becomes significant as it links two major economies that command a quarter of the world's GDP. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen on Tuesday said Europe and India were making history, calling the conclusion as the mother of all deals. In a post on X, President Ursula said, and I quote her here, "Europe and India are making history today. We have concluded the mother of all deals. We have created a free trade zone of 2 billion people with both the sides set to benefit. This is only the beginning. We will grow our strategic relationship to be even stronger," unquote. Earlier, the European Union leaders paid tribute to the father of the nation, Mahatma Gandhi, by laying a wreath at his memorial in Rajghat as part of their state visit to India. The European leaders also signed the guest book at the memorial site after the wreath-laying ceremony and paid floral tributes to Mahatma Gandhi. European Council President Antonio Costa shared visuals from his visit to Rajghat and reflected upon the timeless values of Mahatma Gandhi. India's Defence Minister Rajnath Singh, along with the 3 service chiefs, met with a high-level European Union delegation led by Kaja Kallas, European Union High Representative for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy, on Tuesday in New Delhi. Now, this meeting comes as India and the European Union mark the coming together to form a security and defence partnership, which is a significant step in strengthening bilateral cooperation in areas such as defence capabilities, counter-terrorism and cyber and maritime security.
And your visit is very special as it comes on the occasion of our 77th Republic Day. The occasion marks a moment in celebration of India's constitutional journey and the reaffirmation of our commitment to global peace and security. Secretary, the shared principles of democracy, multilateralism, and the rule of law support India's growing partnership with the European Union. Together, we seek to translate each shared value into practical cooperation for global security, trust-level growth, and inclusive prosperity. Secretary, the signing of the security and the defense partnership between India and the European Union is a reflection of established trust in action, and it brings us together in an increasingly complex global environment. I hope the increased momentum of India-EU partnership in economic, defense, and people-to-people connect will bring the two ancient civilizations much closer.
Republic Day was quite an experience, so thank you for that as well, Your Excellency. I mean, it was so great to see, and I was so proud to see that also, our operations were part of this parade, and I think, it shows how we have been able to work together. Like you say, the signing of the Security and Defense Partnership is really a milestone, and we can build on that. There is so much more. Like you said, Your Excellency, that we can work together on the multilateral fora, but also bilaterally to develop the defense cooperation further. So I really look forward to our discussions today and further cooperation in the future.
India and European Union jointly declared the conclusion of negotiations of the India-EU Free Trade Agreement on Tuesday. In the presence of Prime Minister Narendra Modi, the President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, and the President of the European Council, Antonio Luis Santos da Costa, these agreements were signed, which include administrative arrangement on cooperation and disaster risk management, India-EU Security and Defence Partnership, formal constitution of a green hydrogen task force to align standards and certification for clean energy trade. And to give you a rounded perspective on this very important development for the entire nation, I am now joined by Mr. Manjeev Singh Puri, who's been the former senior diplomat. Good afternoon, sir. Thank you so much for joining us here at this very special broadcast, because it is a very special and historic moment, as both the leaders said. First of all, for the benefit of our viewers, we would like to understand it from you. Why are we terming this as the mother of all deals?
Deepika, thank you very much. This is truly an important and a very significant occasion, not only for India, but also for the European Union, and I dare say for the world in general. The European Union is the world's second largest economy. India, as you know, is on its way towards becoming the fourth or third largest economy in a few years' time. We are the two largest democracies in the world. When we come together, and we come together in the area of trade, which binds people together, they are, of course, our largest trade partner and good. Then what it does truly is it signals to the world that these two large economies, massive democracies, are coming together. I want to make a couple of points to you. On trade, certainly there will be openings, possibilities for both India and the European Union. But more importantly than that, it signals to the European technology and financial powerhouses that India is an open economy where they can do business, invest in India, and at the same time have freedom of trade, both in terms of the access to Indian market as well as in terms of the world after that. This is the direction for our Viksit Bharat 2047. And for the European Union, especially in the context of transatlantic turbulence, President Trump and his tariffs, an excellent opportunity to cement much further its already known as strategic relationship with one of the large emerging powers in the world. And let me say, a power that is there to stay and one which has got absolutely the huge amount of significance, including, as I mentioned to you, democracy, people, market, and capacity.
When we talk about this historic trade deal and the negotiations and the conclusions which have been finalized, which are the sectors which will be benefiting from these negotiations, this particular free trade agreement?
So the details of the trade agreement are not out. Only the general outline is there and the intent is there. But what is it that we know? Look, we know that agriculture will be left out, which is, I think, a particularly useful thing, politically very important. What will benefit? I think middle and small industry, medium and small industry will benefit from India a lot. Gems and jewelry, another major area of things. In terms of access, a lot will happen. But you know, Deepika, if I again stress what I said, for me, the greatest opportunity in this for India is not trade. It is the possibilities of attracting huge amounts of European investment into India. You know, many times we try to look at investment and trade in different silos, but they aren't for companies. Companies need freedom to be able to trade internationally across borders so that they can invest. That is how they build the supply chain. This is an agreement which signals something much more than trade. It's truly important. It has massive investment potential for India, and it has this signal of multi-alignment among major players in the world, which is truly very important for this agreement.
When we talk about this very important aspect, Prime Minister Narendra Modi in his joint press conference address also mentioned about various sectors, including cybersecurity, including counter-terrorism, maritime security, and also IMEC sector as well. How do you look at the development, which is almost a 360-degree development, considering the fact that we want to become a developed nation by the year 2047, and we are also aiming to become the third largest economy?
Deepika, very well put. Look, India and the European Union are old partners. They're strategic partners for years, and there's a huge gamut of relationships. We and the European Union collaborated in the anti-piracy activities against the Somalians. So there's a lot of this. Now, all of this will certainly build. And as I mentioned to you, trade investment is one side of it. But the fact that there is political signal that the European Union itself is looking at trying to bolster its security capacities, its abilities in the area of cyber, in the area of anti-terrorism, and fundamentally in the area of being able to be a strong security partner. So it's not only that we will buy equipment like the Rafales from European countries, but in terms of building a relationship, which is very important. And I'm glad that you brought in IMEC. Look, the entire business of the Suez Canal was what? It was about linking India, this great continent and country, with Europe, bringing it closer. If we are able to provide a multimodal, not just alternative, but let me say, yet another complementary thing to the Suez Canal, a multimodal thing using railways and other things via the Middle East, how will it not benefit? It will be tremendous benefits, not just to us and India and the Indian economy, but I believe in terms of the fact that India is such a large economy, growing very well, it has low-cost manufacturing capacity. The Europeans will be also huge gainers as a result of it. The bringing together of two large economies, IMEC has its own role and a very important.
Also, when we talk about the joint presser, before that there was a photo op, and there we saw a show of strength. When Prime Minister Narendra Modi met both the European Union leaders, and there were handshakes, and the show of strength was entirely a different sort of message on the diplomatic platform. How do you see it?
Deepika, the Europeans have reached out to us for many years. In 2021, they invited Prime Minister Modi to address all the leaders of the European Union. He was the second world leader to do so after President Biden had done. Now, we also have huge and massive relations with them. The two leaders, or all these leaders, know each other very well. And I don't know if you and your viewers are aware, Antonio da Costa is of Indian origin. He became the first European leader of Indian origin when he became Prime Minister of Portugal about 10 years back, and is a recipient of the Prasar Bharati Samman. So, you know, the Prime Minister knows these leaders. They know the Prime Minister. This is our 16th summit. He himself has held so many of them with them. They know it. The chemistry between them is good. The political will is there. I would say thank you, Transatlantic, for having given it a little bit of a push. That was also important. But what I see is building a relationship which has economics as its root, but which builds politically coming together, which strengthens multipolarity in the world, which strengthens multi-alignment for both India as well as the European Union. For India, it's a recognition that we are a country of significance.
Also, the first EU legal gateway to India was also announced by von der Leyen. How important is it?
You know, these things are all very important. As I mentioned to you, the entire business of global trade, in a sense, was about Europe dealing with India. If I take you to William Dalrymple's book, what does he say? Lots of people talk about China, but it was really India. And so the Suez Canal helped that. All these gateways are going to be particularly important. I have absolutely no doubt, but again, if I say, the eating of this pudding, we'll see what happens in terms of trade, in terms of other things. But for me, the signaling is very important for the economic stakeholders in both sides. It's also important for political stakeholders. That's true. It's important for security stakeholders. But economics, if you agree, is the bedrock of many things that you can do together. And when two of the largest economies of the world come together, then it bodes very well for every other aspect, security included, politics included. And remember, we are the two largest democracies in the world.
Indeed. And when we talk about the future prospects and further steps, the next steps in this procedure, because right now we have concluded the negotiations. This is a historic moment for us. What are the next steps involved? Because this will take time for coming into effect.
That is absolutely right. The Europeans are, of course, fairly rule-bound. There will be what is called legal scrubbing of the documents. What the negotiators, who are both political and economic, have done, the lawyers will go through all this so such that they are compliant with EU laws, with India laws, and I dare say even they are WTO compliant. All of that will be checked. It takes a little bit of time. That on the side of the European Union, these kind of agreements also need to go through the European Parliament. In the case of India, our rules are such that parliamentary approvals are not necessary, the Union Cabinet can approve. So all of this takes a little bit of time, which is why they are all talking in terms of the agreement coming into force, hopefully in early 2027.
All right. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us and getting us a rounded perspective on this very historic development between India and the 27-nation bloc European Union. Moving on. Well, India Energy Week kicks off in Goa on the 27th of January, and it will bring together global energy leaders to focus on energy, security, investments and decarbonization. Taposh Bhattacharya has a report. Take a look.
The global energy spotlight is turning to India. India Energy Week 2026 kicks off January 27 in Goa, bringing together the world's top energy leaders at a defining moment for the global energy transition. The first major international energy event of the year, India Energy Week will drive conservation on energy security, big investment and decarbonization pathway, shaping the future.
India Energy Week, this time at Goa, is the most important event for the country. It honors our Prime Minister's vision for Viksit Bharat 2047, bringing all energies under one umbrella from the world over, whether we talk of the conventional energy, the sustainable energy, or any other types and forms which India today needs
for our aspirational population.
With over 75,000 participants, 600 exhibitors and 120 plus sessions, the scale keeps growing, drawing ministers and delegates from more than a dozen countries, global CEOs, policymakers and technology leaders. 11 thematic zones, including nuclear and sustainable aviation fuel, will highlight Make in India's strength and India's net zero ambition.
From policy to partnership, India Energy Week 2026 places India at the center of global energy decision making, driving the conversation on security, sustainability and growth. With camera person Sandeep, this is Taposh Bhattacharya for TT India from Goa.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi virtually inaugurated the 4th edition of India Energy Week 2026 in South Goa. He said as the country moves beyond energy security and towards energy independence through reforms and global investment. Well, India is also expanding global partnerships across the energy value chain, opening exploration and targeting up to $100 billion investment in oil and gas. So this comes at a very important time and especially taking place in South Goa this time.
भारत की इतनी बड़ी जनसंख्या है, हमारी इकोनॉमी लगातार बढ़ रही है, ऐसे भारत में पेट्रोकेमिकल प्रोडक्ट्स की डिमांड भी लगातार बढ़ने वाली है। इसलिए हमें बहुत बड़े एनर्जी इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर की आवश्यकता होगी और इसमें भी आपका इन्वेस्टमेंट आपको बहुत ग्रोथ देगा। इन सब के अलावा भारत में डाउनस्ट्रीम एक्टिविटीज में भी आपके लिए इन्वेस्टमेंट के बहुत मौके हैं। साथियों, आज का भारत रिफॉर्म्स एक्सप्रेस पर सवार है और हर सेक्टर में तेजी से रिफॉर्म्स कर रहा है। हम डोमेस्टिक हाइड्रोकार्बन को सशक्त करने के लिए रिफॉर्म्स कर रहे हैं और ग्लोबल कोलैबोरेशन के लिए ट्रांसपेरेंट और इन्वेस्टर फ्रेंडली एनवायरनमेंट बना रहे हैं। भारत अब एनर्जी सिक्योरिटी से आगे बढ़कर एनर्जी इंडिपेंडेंस के मिशन पर काम कर रहा है। भारत एक ऐसा एनर्जी सेक्टर इकोसिस्टम डेवलप कर रहा है जो भारत की लोकल डिमांड को पूरा कर सके और एफोर्डेबल रिफाइनिंग और ट्रांसपोर्टेशन सॉल्यूशन से दुनिया के लिए एक्सपोर्ट भी बहुत ही कॉम्पिटिटिव हो।
And to get you more on this, I'm joined by Lead India correspondent Taposh Bhattacharya straight from Goa. Good afternoon, Taposh. What are the key highlights of this edition of India Energy Week 2026?
Right, so let me put it this way, Deepika, that more than 75,000 exhibitors, people who will be working on energy sector will be coming here. In fact, this is one of the largest gathering of energy, people who work on energy, the stakeholders, and not just in the country but around the globe. So that is one. Then we will have most of the companies who are dealing in energy sector, for that matter, British Petroleum. You have Indian companies, you have UAE companies. All those companies will be coming here to sit down and chalk out a plan for themselves, for the country, and that's one part of it. They have also got their stalls, they've got their pavilions. There will be thematic understanding of the sectors that will be there. So all these things will be will be there in the next 2 days. 27th it started, it will go on till 30th, then it will end. So the next 3 days we will see a lot of hectic activities with between these companies, and at the same time they will also work on signing new MoUs. We were told that today ONGC will sign a few MoUs. The other companies are expected to sign MoUs. So it is all about providing India energy security and energy stability in an international arena, international scenario where things are not that stable. So for India, which is growing which is the largest growing economy in the world, fastest growing economy in the world, It is expected to touch the third largest economy number in a short while. For a country like India, energy is a key concern, and India Energy Week is expected to redress some of those questions that will be raised here in the next 3 days.
And also, Taposh, Prime Minister Narendra Modi virtually addressed the India Energy Week today, and he pointed out a very specific thing, which is India is now moving forward to become energy independent. How important it is when we talk about India's COP commitments as well?
There are 2 points that you mentioned, Deepika. The first is definitely India need to be energy independent. Right now, if you take a close look at our energy consumption, in fact, the kind of we generally import almost 60 to 70% of our energy requirements, especially the crude oil that we are talking about. And with the current scenario, the international relation that we see, the crude prices tend to be a little volatile, and that actually puts a lot of pressure on India's economy. As I mentioned, it's 60 to 70%. If you are buying crude and gas from outside, it does put you under a lot of strain. Especially you have to buy all these crude oil through dollar and such a currency. So that is one part of it, and India is trying to become self-sufficient by exploring new energy requirement in the country itself. So we see a lot of exploration currently going on in the ocean bed, where we believe that there's a large deposit of gas as well as crude oil that can be found. The second is to look inside and get more renewable energy options. Already India has been talking about meeting their NDC target 5 years ahead of time with the renewable energy. There's a major push in the renewable energy sector. So combining those, India can become major be independent in the energy security aspect. The second part you mentioned about COP70 commitment. Yes, we have a COP70 commitment. We want to become by 2070 we want to become net neutral, but it can't happen overnight. It has to be a progressive one. And how we can do it? There will be reliance on the fossil fuel, or for that matter, major push on coal and such sector. But as I said, we are moving ahead moving ahead in the renewable sector market. I already mentioned that we have already achieved our target of NDC target, nationally determined target, 5 years before the year that we mentioned. We were expected to get it by 2035. We got it earlier. So all these things, we believe that by 2070, India will become net neutral, but for that a lot of work needs to be done, and India Energy Week 2026 is expected to be the bedrock through which we can achieve that.
All right, thank you so much, Taposh, for joining us from Goa and getting us all the latest on the India Energy Week. Well, India Energy Week commenced in Goa on Tuesday with a strong call for cooperation, resilience and inclusive growth. At inaugural ceremony, keynote addresses, the Union Minister for Petroleum and Natural Gas, Hardeep Singh Puri, outlined India's expanding role in the global energy landscape and described India Energy Week as a rapidly maturing global platform that brings together policy, industry, innovation and leadership.
India Energy Week brings together the ideas, expertise and leadership needed to convert dialogue into direction and direction into delivery. Over the coming days, this platform will foster partnerships and insights that strengthen energy systems across regions and economies. Let us approach this week with a shared focus on cooperation and outcomes. May India Energy Week serve as a catalyst for collective progress and a forum where solutions are shaped for the benefit of the world.
Time to take a quick and short break, but still to come on the other side. Snowstorm triggers power outage, disrupts flights across United States. President Donald Trump sends borders out to Minnesota in a bid to ease tensions over the killing of a second person by immigration agents.
Welcome to Jaipur.
Welcome back after that short break. You're watching DD India News Hour. Let's quickly recap the top headlines of the hour. In a historic move, India concludes negotiation on landmark free trade agreement with European Union comprising 27 countries, the mother of all deals to represent a quarter of world's economy. Prime Minister Modi calls the conclusion of India-EU FTA negotiation historic, calls it a blueprint for shared prosperity. Both the sides exchange MoUs in key sectors. Prime Minister Modi addresses India Energy Week 2026, says India now moving beyond energy security towards a mission of energy independence. The South Korean government convened emergency talks following President Trump's announcement of tariff increases from 15% to 25% on key exports, including automobiles, lumber and pharmaceuticals. Seoul pledged calm engagement with Washington while lawmakers moved to expedite investment legislation. Demonstrations erupted in Seoul as the auto industry, representing 27% of US exports, faces heightened risk. Here's more.
South Korea's government convened emergency talks on Tuesday after US President Donald Trump announced plans to raise tariffs on South Korean goods, including autos, lumber, and pharmaceuticals, from 15% to 25%. Trump accused Seoul of failing to honor a trade pact, writing on Truth Social that its legislature had not enacted the agreement. Trade Minister Kim Jong-kwon joined the meeting remotely from Canada as Seoul said it will reaffirm its commitment to the US deal, noting tariffs take effect only after formal steps. Kim is set to travel to Washington for talks after Trump moved to reverse an October pact with President Lee Jae-myung that cut car tariffs from 25% to 15%, a deal Seoul says remains in legal limbo. South Korea's ruling party pledged to work with the opposition to fast-track 5 pending bills enabling U.S. investment. Trade envoy Yo Han-koo said Seoul is still analyzing Trump's post and will seek a rational solution with U.S. officials. Lawmakers noted such bills usually take 6 to 7 months to pass, though both parties agree on the need for cooperation. Protesters gathered near the U.S. Embassy in Seoul denouncing Trump's tariff plan. The auto industry, accounting for 27% of South Korea's exports to the U.S., could be hit hardest, as nearly half of the country's car exports go to America. Trump has also recently threatened steep tariffs on Canada and Europe, though he later backed off those warnings. Nitesh Kumar's report, DD India.
President Donald Trump sent his border czar, Tom Homan, to Minnesota in a bid to ease tensions over the killing of a second person by immigration agents. Trump said that border official will answer directly to him, a shift that suggests the administration is responding to political backlash. Now, most Americans oppose the aggressive immigration and customs enforcement tactics. Trump also spoke to Minnesota governor and Minneapolis mayor on the issue. Following the call with Trump, Frey said some federal agents will begin leaving Minneapolis on Tuesday. Meanwhile, Gregory Bovino has been removed from his role as the commander-at-large for the U.S. Border Patrol. He will return to his former job in California, where he is expected to retire soon. Demonstrators assembled outside Senator Amy Klobuchar's Minneapolis office on Monday, urging her and other Minnesota legislators to block proposals that would increase funding for U.S. immigration and customs enforcement. Their protest came as Senate Democrats said they would not provide the votes needed to pass a $64.4 billion Department of Homeland Security funding bill. Current funding is set to expire after midnight on Friday. The deaths of Rini Good and Alex Pretty in recent federal agent-involved shootings have sparked large protests in the Democratic-run city. Moving on to Russia-Ukraine conflict. Russian drones and missile strikes hit Ukraine's second largest city, Kharkiv, and knocking out power to 80% of the city and surrounding the region. Firefighters were seen battling the place at a burning building, and repair efforts were seen underway. While on Monday, a Ukrainian drone attack killed a resident of Russia's border region of Belgorod. Chief of Russia's General Staff Valery Gerasimov inspected the West group of Russian forces fighting in Ukraine on Tuesday. He said that Russian forces captured 17 settlements and took control of more than 500 square kilometers of territory in Ukraine so far in January. Earlier on Monday, the Kremlin said that territorial issue remains of fundamental importance to Russia in peace talks with the United States and Ukraine. Meanwhile, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky called on allies not to weaken their pressure on Moscow as the talks between Ukrainian and Russian negotiators are expected to resume on Sunday.
Some issues need to be prepared for the next meeting. We previously discussed that the teams would meet again on Sunday. It would be good if this meeting could be sped up. Ukraine will be as prepared as possible for all matters that need to be discussed and agreed upon. Ukraine has always been and will always be on the side of peace. And the only party responsible for the continuation of this war is Russia.
France's president will receive the leaders of Denmark and Greenland in Paris on Wednesday for a working lunch. Emmanuel Macron will reaffirm European solidarity and France's support for Denmark, Greenland, their sovereignty and their territorial integrity, the presidency said on Tuesday. The meeting comes days after US President Donald Trump backed down from threats to seize Greenland, a mineral-rich strategic Arctic island that is an autonomous territory within the Kingdom of Denmark. Updates from West Asia now. Israeli forces brought home the remains of Ran Vili, the last hostage held in Gaza. The young Israeli police officer in the elite Yassam unit was on medical leave when Hamas launched its deadly 2023 attack on Israel. Nicknamed the Defender of Elumim by his family and kibbutz of that name, he was killed in combat near the community and his body was taken to Gaza by Hamas terrorists. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu called Givili's return an extraordinary achievement. Later, addressing a conference on anti-Semitism, Netanyahu said he fulfilled his promise of having no hostages in Gaza. The Israeli Prime Minister also praised the United States, President Trump's effort in bringing back Israeli hostages. Israeli President Isaac Herzog and his wife removed yellow hostage symbols from the president's residence on Monday, marking the return of last remaining hostage held in Gaza. Later, the president and his wife also spoke with the parents of Givili over a telephonic conversation. Tokyo's defense ministry said that North Korea fired what appeared to be a ballistic missile towards the Sea of Japan on Tuesday. South Korea's Joint Chief of Staff also said it had detected a projectile being fired towards what Seoul calls the East Sea. Japan's Coast Guard, citing the Defense Ministry, said it had detected 2 ballistic missiles and that both were estimated to have already splashed down. The test is Pyongyang's second of the month, following a salvo of missiles fired hours before South Korea's leader headed to China for a summit. North Korea has stepped up missile testing significantly in recent years. Pyongyang is also set to hold a landmark congress of its ruling party in the coming weeks, which is its first in 5 years. Japanese Prime Minister Sanae Takachi held her first rally in central Tokyo with dozens of people gathering to listen to her speak. Campaigning for Japan's February the 8th snap general election officially kicked off across the country on Tuesday, with all 465 seats in the House of Representatives up for contest. The primary focus of the election is whether the ruling coalition of the Liberal Democratic Party and the Japan Innovation Party will secure a majority and allow the administration of Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi to continue, or whether the opposition will expand its strength and block the outcome. On to weather news now. A massive winter storm continues to grip the United States, bringing heavy snow, extreme cold and widespread disruption across multiple regions. The storm has dumped large amounts of snow, disrupted power supplies and air travel, and prompted states of emergency across the country. Washington, D.C. was blanketed with over 20 centimeters of snow in nearly 20 hours, with temperatures falling to minus 10 degrees Celsius. The storm, which began on Friday and moved from the southern United States to the northeast, has killed more than 20 people and is affecting nearly 190 million people, more than half of the U.S. population. At least 25 governors declared states of emergency and warned that freezing air and ice accumulation following the storm could prolong its impact through this week. Every year on the 27th of January, the world pauses to remember one of history's darkest chapters, which is the Holocaust. 6 million Jews, along with millions of others, were systematically murdered by Nazi Germany. Today, nation remembers the victims and renews pledge to never again. Akshay Dongre brings us this report. Take a look.
January 27th marks the International Holocaust Remembrance Day, commemorating the liberation of the Auschwitz-Birkenau concentration camp in 1945. Black and white images frozen in time, barbed wire fences, emaciated survivors, abandoned suitcases bear witness to the horrors of the Holocaust. Between 1933 and 1945, Nazi Germany carried out a systematic genocide, killing 6 million Jews, along with Roma, disabled people, political prisoners, and others deemed undesirable. The Holocaust was not just a crime of war, it was a crime against humanity. Gas chambers, mass shootings, forced labor camps, all part of an industrial-scale killing machine driven by hatred and ideology. As Allied forces advanced across Europe, camps were liberated, revealing the unimaginable scale of suffering. For survivors, liberation did not end the pain. Families were destroyed, homes erased, identities lost forever. Yet many survivors chose to speak to ensure the world would never forget. Today, remembrance ceremonies are held across the globe at memorials, museums, schools, and parliaments, honoring the victims and educating future generations. The United Nations designated January 27th as Holocaust Remembrance Day to combat denial, distortion, and rising anti-Semitism. As eyewitnesses grow fewer, preserving memory becomes a collective responsibility. Holocaust Remembrance Day is not only about the past, it's a warning for the future, a reminder of where hatred can lead and why humanity must stand united against intolerance. Akshay Dongre's report for DD India.
Time to take a short break, but still to come on the other side. Gold prices hit fresh record highs as investors seek safe havens amid geopolitical tensions.
Can the US launch a bombing campaign against Iran? The Philippines vessel suffered structural damage. The saga of child sexual abuse is the United States China's debt trap strategy. Truth is stranger than fiction. But sometimes hard to uncover. Trust us to tell the truth, unadulterated and pure, of every story that matters to you.
represent save your country.
You read between the lines, cut the clutter, and connect the dots to get you the full picture. Watch Connecting the Dots at these times with me, only on DD India.
Welcome back after that short break. You're watching DD India News Hour. France's lower house of the parliament has passed a bill banning access to social media for children under the age of 15. The National Assembly approved the legislation during an overnight session from Monday into Tuesday, backing a measure championed by President Emmanuel Macron as a way to protect children from excessive screen time and harmful online content. Passed by 116 votes to 23, the bill follows similar measures abroad, including Australia's ban on social media for under 16s. Supporters say it will help curb cyberbullying and mental health risks, while critics warn of enforcement and age verification challenges. The ban is due to apply to new accounts from 2026 school year, with existing non-compliant accounts to be shut down by the end of that year. Now, gold prices hit fresh record highs on Monday as investors sought safe havens amid geopolitical tensions, US tariff threats, and fear of another potential government shutdown. Now, gold briefly climbed above $5,100 an ounce before easing back, while Wall Street stocks edged higher ahead of earnings from major technology companies. Gold was last trading near $5,037 an ounce, compared with around $2,000 2 years ago, with silver also at record levels. You're watching DD India News Hour, and now it's time to get you all the latest from the world of sports. To begin with tennis. Top seed Aryna Sabalenka has reached the Australian Open 2026 semi-finals after a commanding victory over 18-year-old Eva Djokovic. The world number 1 defeated Djokovic by 6-3, 6-0 in one-sided quarter-final at sweltering Melbourne Park on Tuesday. Sabalenka, champion in 2023 and 24, and last year's runner-up, will face either Coco Gauff or Elina Svitolina for a place in Saturday's final. The world number 1 closed out the match in straight sets, staying on course for a third Australian Open title in 4 years. Her experience and powerful game proved too strong for the teenage American. In men's category, last year's runner-up Alexander Zverev paved his way into the Australian Open semi-finals as he crushed young American Lerner Chien by 6-3, 6-7, 6-1 and 7-6 in Melbourne. The big serving third seed had upper hand in the first set, but there was little between the two in the second set. However, Zverev pulled clear in the third set, eliminating the unforced errors and breaking twice to ease ahead. In the fourth set, Zverev took command in the tie-break and booked his place in the next round. Zverev is desperate to finally win a Grand Slam at the age of 28, having lost the last year's title decider by Jannik Sinner. The German was also a runner-up at the US Open in 2020 and again at the French Open in 2024. Scotland have included Afghan-born uncapped pacer Zainullah Ehsan in their 15-member squad for the 2026 Cricket World Cup beginning in India and Sri Lanka from the 7th of February. Richie Perrington will captain a strong squad that includes 11 players who were part of the 2024 T20 World Cup squad in West Indies and the USA. Ehsan is the sole first-time call-up, with the fast bowler having recently qualified to play for Scotland. Tom Bruce, Finlay McCreath and Olivia Davidson will all travel to their first World Cup following their involvement in T20 and ODI squads during the last 12 months. Head coach Owen Tompkins said the unexpected entry into the World Cup provides a great opportunity for the players. Scotland have replaced Bangladesh in Group C, including first-timers Italy, West Indies, England and Nepal. Kalinga Lancers defeated Ranchi Royals by 3-2 to win the Hockey India League title at Kalinga Hockey Stadium on Monday. Alexander Handrick scored twice, while Dilpreet Singh added another goal for the Lancers. Ranchi Royals' goals came from Arijit Singh, Hundal and captain Tom Boone. In the dying minutes, Tom Boone scored for the Royals, but it wasn't enough as Kalinga Lancers lifted the trophy. The champions received 3 crore rupees. Runners-up Ranchi Royals got 2 crore rupees, and third place Hyderabad Tufans earned 1 crore. Tom Boone was the top scorer with 19 goals, and Hyderabad Tufans' Amandeep Lakra was crowned player of the tournament, taking home 20 lakh rupees. And that's all for this edition of DD India News Hour. But do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on the DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code on the screen to download it right now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Deepika, and from all of us here in New Delhi, thank you so much for watching DD India News Hour. Namaskar.